Hello and welcome to the Vinyl Vault. My name is Tony,
And I'm Parker.
and today we're going to talk about a classic 90s album. In my opinion, the best album from this band. You might say otherwise, Parker might say otherwise, but today we're going to talk about Dirt by Alice in Chains. Now, Parker, as this is my turn to do the album. I ask, are you familiar with Alice in Chains, and or are you also familiar with the album Dirt?
Yeah, so my familiarity, that's the word, with Alice in Chains mainly stems from my childhood, not because I listened to them, but because Man in the Box from their Facelift album was on Rock Band. And I loved playing that song. I can still play it on hard, play all five keys, all colors. I just haven't been able to get to extreme yet, but it's a work in progress. And so it's kind of what we talked about in the past. You know, your first exposure is kind of always your favorite. And so I never really listened to this album simply because it wasn't Facelift. I do have family members that are big Alice in Chains fans. So that has partially influenced my opinion. I mean, I trust these people have good taste. And yeah. Here's the thing. When we were talking earlier, you mentioned that, Alice in Chains is not the foremost leader on grunge. And I agree with that because when you think grunge, the first name you think of is
Nirvana.
yes. Uh Alice in Chains has always kind of been one of those like I kind of view them in the same way. I don't know how to describe it. They're not the number one group that I think of when I think of this genre.
hmm
I don't even really feel like they're grunge, to be honest with you. I feel like they are more of a, they're kind of in that. In this, you might respond, Parker. You just described grunge, but I feel like in the spectrum that is rock music, they're not too hard and they're not too soft, but like I think that it's that weird, it's like this threshold of tempo that they stay in all the time. I think my only complaint about this entire album is that the tempo didn't really go past 120 beats per minute, it felt like.
hmm
Now, they may have played, they may have hit the snare or, syncopated the rhythms to make it sound like it was faster or sound like it was slower. But yeah, also holy time signatures, and this band loved doing complex rhythms with this, and I don't know. Like I said, I feel like you're about to be like, Will Parker, that is grunge. It's just hard rock that's at a slower tempo. So
Well, Parker, that is grunge. The whole idea of grunge and why it was popular and kind of killed off the hair metal was that they were one very much more introspective, talking about their feelings and the things that they go through, and a lot more darker tones and a lot more based on reality, very much as like the 90s would kind of do, would very much look inward. The music itself, I mean, it's called grunge. This album is called Dirt. It's supposed to feel like you're treading through mud, and it's real thick. So you're not going to get a whole lot of fast pace tempos and things like that. Not to say that it doesn't exist. It just depends on the band. I mean, Soundgarden would be known to be a little bit of a quicker tempo band. I mean, just a variety of songs. It just depends on the songwriters. But I mean, a large part of what also makes it grunge is that it has to be Seattle, as all the bands that are considered in grunge for the most part is from Seattle, and then all the bands that were similar to it is either considered post grunge or alternative, and it would lead on to different names. But grunge is very much a Seattle sound.
I want the record to be clear. I'm not some dummy. I just don't listen to a lot of grunge music.
Yeah.
You can tell by a lot of the albums that I've picked out that I clearly have a certain lane when it comes to music. So me inadvertently describing grunge without labeling it It's not an indictment on my lack of intelligence. I'm just smarter in other musical realms.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason I chose this album, aside from just wanting to talk about it, was also to see that you were not a huge fan of the more aggressive music.
Absolutely not.
And that this band also, to me, what makes Alice in Chains is the vocals, not only from Lane Staley, but also the harmonies, and then sometimes the lead with Jerry Cantrell. Like I've always considered Alice in Chains like the Simon and Garfunkel of of rock, as they are so unique in terms of the two voices doing what they do.
Well, before we dive in too deep into this, you know more about this band than I do. So give me a little bit of history lesson on the name Alice in Chains.
Lane Staley, the lead singer, actually was in a band called Alice N Chains, like Guns N' Roses, with just like the letter N. Now the origins of it, I believe, it might just be more of an Alice in Wonderland. But when Lane met Jerry and the rest of the band, they were kind of trying to figure out a proper band name. They went with a bunch of Lane's older band's names and ultimately ended up with Alice in Chains instead of Alice N Chains. History-wise, of course, Lane would unfortunately lose his life, and I think even around that time, they would replace the bassist, and then we would get a new singer, William Duvall, as sort of the replacement for Lane Staley. And they made a few albums, and they're still doing their thing now. And it's a different sound for sure, because Lane has a very distinct voice, but I mean, the guy can really sing as well.
Yeah, I just doing a little bit of research. I've done the bare minimum of research, and given the history of this group and the end result of some of the members' lives, it's kind of weird to listen to this album knowing what they were dealing with, and the fact that and I'm gonna borrow a quote from Shannon Sharp. He said, money doesn't change you, it just makes what you are worse. And so, and I think that this band obviously had a lot of issues, drug issues, and like specifically the bass player dying of a drug overdose in 2011. The fame simply just enabled, it feels like, a lot of those vices, and it's tragic. I have this opinion that if you're going through something, you can still make art that's relatable to some people, emotionally tangible. It's just, in hindsight, listening to this album, knowing how everything went down, I would just describe this album as kind of just like a dark, tragic, like foreboding of their future.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a reflection of them becoming more popular, more famous, more money, and more access to the excess that they were taking in. And I mean, Lane being a large part of some of the writings in it, and lyrically and what have you. Like if you check out from Junkhead, track 7 down to Angry Chair, like the five song sequence there, it tells a story of a person getting access to drugs and loving it, and what's your favorite drug? Well, what do you got? All the way down, and seeing the dissension into Dirt and Godsmack and Hate to Feel, all the way up to Angry Chair, where there's a lot of addictions and just self-reflection of just what is going on, and the self-loathing, and yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of money just amplifies who you who you already were, and Lane
Yeah.
was not a huge fan of the being famous and stuff. He described himself, no longer a person, but being treated more like an object. Nobody like really knew who he was. He was just a thing, a commodity, and yeah, I mean, he struggled with it.
And
They all did.
and I don't want to speak for them, but I have seen instances just, reading about other groups and other artists that some people legitimately believe that because they were using certain vices, alcohol, drugs, things like that, and also creating successful music, some people would view that as, I can't create successful music if I'm not utilizing these things.
Hmm.
Again, I'm not saying that that's what happened here. I'm saying that it wouldn't surprise me if that thought had crossed any of their minds.
Yeah, I mean, this would probably be more of a later albums of them. This is this is them in the middle of it all and realizing that they have some issues, but they are using their art to talk about it. And so again, yeah, I mean the five last few tracks are all very 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 much about the drug journey that they've been taking since the rise of their first albums.
I really enjoyed this album, and not because, you know, not because of anything other than just simply like this music. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if my brain's on a certain frequency where I like certain tempos.
Mm-hmm.
But I listened to this song probably, I want to say almost every day I drove to and from work. So I would just have it on in the car, listening to it. And granted, I probably should have been, more sitting down, headphones on, just embracing it. I enjoyed it. I think it was. I think it's a great reflection of how they feel. I think they do a good job of that. Obviously, I can't relate to a lot of what they're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
but I can feel. I don't know how to describe it. I can feel how they feel about it without feeling what they feel.
Right, you're
That makes
empathetic
sense.
to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fancy words. My only question is, what the hell is the rooster about?
Oh well, so Rooster is actually one of the weird ones that kind of don't fit the album's theme, I suppose. It's actually about Jerry Cantrell's dad in the Vietnam War. His dad was his nickname is Rooster, and his job was to wake up the rest of his platoon. So he would wake up and would wake everyone up and be like, "All right, it's time to go." And they're like, "Oh, okay, Rooster." So it's a journey of they took that inspiration of, okay, here's war, here's regret of joining the army, missing your family, writing to your wife, knowing that you've got a child at home, but fighting for your country that might not be the biggest fan of you actually being out there. You're
Yeah.
just a tool and what have you.
I just know that this is one of those songs that TikTok has hijacked,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not. I don't, how do I phrase this properly? I don't like it when social media takes songs out of context just to create comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I personally feel like this song, granted the name, kind of sparks like a rooster. But knowing the context of it, it's not a happy song,
No.
but it's used for comedic effects from people that have probably never listened to it or will never listen to it. I don't know. That's my old man rant. I feel like the only reason I knew the song Rooster before I even listened to it all the way through was simply because it had this weird resurgence in social media short videos.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I feel like, you know what I mean? I feel like you should use I feel like you should use positive songs for positive videos, but that's just me.
Well, I mean, comedy's subjective, so I mean, if they think it's funny, like I understand what you're saying. I'm very empathetic to how you're feeling, but Yeah, I mean, sometimes there's a time and place for it. I mean, luckily, Rooster, isn't like a tragic song or anything like that. I mean, it's not a
Yeah.
happy song, but sometimes the punchline is a line,
Yeah,
something like that.
it's very possible I'm probably not communicating my point well enough. Not that that would make you agree with me, but just I don't want to come off as some, a hard-headed guy that thinks that, there has to be a hard and, fast line of what songs you can and can't use. I think that if people I just think I think if more people understood the context, they might consider picking a different song. Now, if it's a literal video of a literal rooster, then you go for it. I don't care. But other than that, I think those are my exemptions.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you that I think people should take the time to actually, if you're going to use a song, learn a little bit about it. Take in the lyrics, because sometimes you don't even take in the lyrics. It's just the sound. It's whatever.
Yeah.
There's more to it than just the surface level stuff.
If you think half the songs by Foster the People are positive, listen to them. Just a fun fact.
Okay, so
Yes.
do you have favorites, and are there any songs that you also didn't like?
Absolutely. I hated the Untitled song.
Okay. Fair.
I don't think it should legally be called a song. I would describe it as just lots of noises.
Yeah.
And I understand that it's almost kind of like an interlude in this 5-song sequence you've mentioned. I don't see the point in it.
Fair.
They don't say anything. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I hated it. But for my top 3, I feel like, so it's weird. So my top 3, I have Wood at number 3. And also Hate to Feel was a strong contender here. But the only reason I liked it was because when they go into the chorus, they do that doom 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 doom, and then the drums come in and just like halftime it and give it this like nice breakdown that I really enjoy. It's just that's the only part of the song I really liked, and I was like, I can't put that in the top 3 simply for 30 seconds of the song, but it was a very strong contender. Number 2, I have Them Bones. I feel like that's one of those songs that I feel like could have been longer.
Yeah.
It's only 2.5 minutes long, especially considering it's, I don't know how you feel about it. I think it's probably their second biggest hit overall. I think their biggest hit is obviously Man in the Box, and then I think it's Them Bones. But that's just my opinion. I think it could have been longer. And then I think my favorite one was Down in a Hole. I feel like the writing is pretty good on it. I feel like it does a good job of painting the illusion of how they feel and kind of being stuck in that situation, almost like a man in a box, if you will.
Right.
I think those are this was a good album. It wasn't the hardest it was for me to pick 3. I think if anything, it was harder for me to pick 2 or 3 than it was to pick number 1.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you my list real quick. As number 3 would be Wood, number 2 would be Them Bones, and number 1 would be Down in a Hole.
Look at us.
Look at us. And I also struggled with trying to come up with the proper top 3, as I also really liked Dirt. Rooster's also undeniable. Honestly, aside from the Untitled, as it's always something that I skip.
Yeah.
I also didn't really enjoy like Sick Man a whole lot. But because it's sort of in between Down in a Hole and Rooster, it upsets me more because I'm like, all right, come on, Sick Man, let's move on.
Its own location.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people that don't understand, we compile our top 3 on our own. We actually don't ever reveal them until we meet, and that's why some of our videos in the past, specifically the Ozzy Osbourne one,
I was about to say it was going to be Perry Mason.
Really sparked a lot of debate between us because we don't know what the other is going to say, and so you're seeing those reactions in real time. Very rarely, I think this is the first time you and I have had the same list.
Yeah, the exact same list. Yeah.
Kudos to you for having good taste.
thank you for finally realizing that I know what I'm talking about and what have you.
Don't get too ahead of yourself.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, we can go further in, or do you think that we've kind of discussed everything?
I love learning the history of some of these groups. And I feel like we've done a decent job, but I feel like we've also scratched the surface a little bit.
I mean, yeah, there's certainly a lot more to it.
And real quick, can you give me an explanation as to the cover of the album?
Yeah. So
It's obviously a person lying in dirt,
yeah.
but I don't know if the woman is supposed to be a metaphor for anything.
It's supposed to kind of be like a woman stuck in hell, and they actually wanted to have this model go out into the desert and shoot it, for this image, but they just could not control the weather and things like that, and so yeah, they ended up creating a set and covering her up and what have you. Yeah, I think it's supposed to, the feeling again of dirt
stuck.
on you, being stuck, being sunken into, and just not being able to get out. And some of the titles for these, for this album, it kind of fits. If you're gonna picture this woman going through all of if this was a storyline, I think it kind of fits it very well. It's definitely a very strange looking album cover.
Well, and you gotta wonder if that was kind of one of the, I don't want to say inadvertent, because I think when you design an album cover, nothing's ever on accident. But I don't think that they were trying to do like as shock and awe as we might see today.
No.
But I also think that if they were probably like, hey, this does look kind of unorthodox, like this will get people to at least stop and look at the album. But I also think that this band's influence still exists today. I know grunge is not anywhere near as popular as it used to be. But I was because I don't know anything about grunge. I'm sitting there and I'm driving, I'm listening to Godsmack, and I'm like, I thought this was a band. I didn't know there was a song called Godsmack. And I was doing a little bit of research, and the whole point of the band Godsmack apparently is a direct reference to not only this song but Lane itself. And that band came out in what, the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah.
So I mean, no time was wasted getting that band up and going.
Right.
And so I don't know. I think that they deserve more credit for what they've gotten. But then again, they didn't even get the proper recognition. Like, I don't want to say the proper recognition, because Nirvana is such a giant in this small pond of grunge. It's hard competing with them. But
I think it's just different lanes when when you're discovering grunge, you're seeing Nirvana, you're taking in all of Nirvana. Okay, well, what else does grunge have? And I'd say probably mainstream wise, I guess it would be like Pearl Jam. And then from there, I think it might be kind of like Alice in Chains might be third, might be fourth, probably more so fourth, because I feel like Soundgarden and Chris Cornell is a little bit more popular. But like, it's not to say that people don't know Alice in Chains or aren't aware of like Rooster, Man in a Box and things like that. I mean, like you said, it was on Rock Band. There's somebody knows, so it's not like an obscure band. It's just one of those times where it's a band that came out in a time where there was a lot more popular bands. It's almost like the Beatles, where all four of them are amazing songwriters, but you really only think of Paul and McCartney,
the other three
and the other guys.
Do you consider
and Lennon? Sorry,
do you consider the Foo Fighters grunge?
Yeah, so they are probably the most grunge that is post grunge, mainly because Dave Grohl obviously was a part of it as the drummer of Nirvana.
Yeah.
You listen to the styles and stuff. I think it kind of morphed more into just your normal hard rock. as they kind of strayed away from the darker overtones and the lyrical content.
So that brings me to my next question.
Yeah.
How important is the tempo then in grunge? If the two biggest Foo Fighters songs to me, Everlong and The Pretender, are all fast-paced tracks.
Right. I mean, so here's the thing. I think grunge went and died when it should have. I mean, music evolved and it moved on, and rock had to compete against the sudden influx of the boy band girl band, your Justin Timberlake's, Britney Spears, like the whole Mickey Mouse Club. Like they had to compete with that, and so they couldn't really focus anymore on like the sadder stuff or the slower tempos, and it would eventually lead to your quote your dad rock, your new metal would come out. Like you could see the progression where new metal very much uses the darker lyrical stuff, but uses the hip hop and metal type elements added to it. Whereas grunge was very much a like hair metal killer of like, oh, we're not all about the glam and everyone being all pretty and stuff. No, we're dirty, and we our life isn't all bubblegum pop.
We're just gonna clip that part out of context. I do have a question. I want to get your opinion on this.
Sure.
I have a theory, and it has not been tested, so I guess I can't call it a theory, that I think the music landscape changes as it reacts unto itself. And I think, so for example, I believe the happy-go-lucky pop boy band is a direct reaction to people being tired of being sad and listening to grunge. I think, we pushed, kind of, nowadays you have more hip-hop and rap. Now you're starting to see people do more of like the 70s funk.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a couple country artists, they are going back to that 70s 80s early 90s country, very George Strait, very Garth Brooks, very acoustic guitar and steel guitar, and they're not doing so much of that Florida Georgia line. And I think that's just a reaction to the public being like, hey, this was fun, but like remember when it was like not this?
Right.
And so do you feel like the reason grunge died was more or less just the public wanting to not be sad?
Yeah. I mean, I think a large part of it with Cobain's death was sort of like maybe the first real steps of seeing it, kind of die out, and then all the other bands post grunge, making their mark on it. However, just never reaching the giant mainstream status, and then pop kind of taking over and rap and everything like that. Yeah, I definitely think that it's just the times. I mean, obviously, we talked about Rooster, obviously written in the 90s, but, there's plenty of music that came out in the 60s and 70s, all about the Vietnam War, to 80s for your, or 70s for disco and everything like that. 80s pop being very, very like fun. Yeah, Michael Jackson, but that because of Michael Jackson, then, the African American community then developed more rap and gangster rap and all this other stuff as a contrast to what it was, because they,
Yes.
They just, there's, as one leans more towards another, there's always going to be the contrast, and it just depends on who, where is mainstream going to teeter towards. And I think it usually leads to something a little bit more simple and then something a little bit more complex, meaning nowadays everything is so easily automated that there's no real skill involved in terms of like learning an instrument and doing stuff. You can just have it programmed for you.
Yeah.
Whereas I think now there's starting to be more of a reemergence of
Show us you could play an instrument.
yeah, and then it's like really, really impressive, because like, oh wow, I had no idea that this in particular person, artist that I followed, is a rapper, but is actually able to play the instruments and stuff like that. You appreciate something like a guitar solo, or you appreciate that there's horns being played into it, and reminiscence of the fun of the past, like you said, with like funk and disco and everything like that. Like I think it's just like it just repeats itself and just varies. There's not a whole lot of different instruments that are being created until there is, and then that will eventually lead to dubstep.
Well, I was about to say, I feel like you're trying to imply that the pendulum is going to swing back and we'll have grunge in about 5 years, but I'll settle for dubstep. What's Skrillex up to these days?
He's wonk 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 wonk.
Pac-Man?
Yes.
But,
video game music.
Yeah, no, I mean, this has the unofficial, non-sponsored Vinyl Vault stamp of approval. We need to get a sponsor for that.
We do. Is
there a stamp company we can reach out to?
Sure.
Stamps are us.
Stamps are us. If you want to contact the Vinyl
Yeah.
Vault, contact us on ozarksfirst.com.
Yeah, listen to it. If grunge is not your thing, I understand. Like for me, Metallica, not my thing. That's a bad man right there. I like that look, especially the Marlboro shirt. Really brings it together.
Yeah.
Listen to this album. I always, I give Tony guff whenever we listen to like the hard metal, because it's just it makes my ears ring and everybody's just screaming about feelings and I don't like it. I enjoyed this one. It's fun when you sing about your feelings. It's usually more well received than it is if you just scream in my ear.
Sure.
Not a fan.
You also said that you do enjoy Enter Sandman, right? Was that one the few Metallica songs?
Yeah, and you wouldn't believe it. They actually sing in that one,
right? So,
and it's a slower tempo.
I'm sure at some point we'll do the Black Album, and you can really see how, because of the era being the 90s, of how they changed their sound to be more mainstream, as that is the album that really made them big.
Yeah.
I'm gonna slowly make an attempt to
This is all this series is. It's just us slowly breaking each other down until we submit to their music tastes.
I mean, I can honestly say so far was not super aware of Supertramp, but like it's made the playlist.
And
so
I almost called it emergency pod because one of the singers died, I think, last week. But obviously Supertramp, no offense to Supertramp, not as big as Ozzy Osbourne. So
yeah, there you go.
It is what it is. Plus I think I was busy that week. No, like I said, I recommend people listen to it, and when I mean listen to it, I mean it again and again. Listen to it. Don't just put it on while you're doing your hair. Don't put it on while you're cooking dinner. Listen to it. Feel what they're saying. Let the music wash over you.
And do that with all your music. As somebody is making this intentionally, and they're trying to say something, hopefully.
Oh, I thought you were talking about me. I was like, where are you going with this? No, yes, these people definitely made this music on purpose. They wanted to convey a message. Interpret the message.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was this episode of the Vinyl Vault. Parker, have you thought of next week's album? Can we give a teaser?
Yeah, we are going to do 70s funk. It's going to be an ensemble band. And by ensemble, I don't mean like a bunch of famous people getting together. I mean, it's just a large band. So have fun.
Okay. Well, for Parker, I'm Tony, and this has been the Vinyl Vault.